A few questions
'Kay.
before we get going.
Yeah.
Because there's a few things I was going to bring up where I'm like, I better
Yeah.
double check with Kelsey.
Perfect.
Thoughts on apple cider vinegar?
Yeah.
Perfect.
No evidence.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I can already tell.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, fantastic. And then in the Instagram live you sent,
Yeah.
you mentioned poop.
Yeah.
Like, I want to talk about poop.
Yeah. I talk poop all day.
For perfect.
Yeah. Very
Okay.
comfortable talking poop.
I don't like to do formal, like,
Yeah.
all right, well, I'm sitting here with Kelsey today. So, I mean, we can just kind of get right into it.
Sure.
So, one of the big reasons that I wanted to bring you on is when I think nutrition and I think health, the first things that come to mind are, okay, macronutrients, micronutrients, eat your vegetables, drink your water. But gut health isn't the first thing to come to mind.
No.
And I know it's a lot more important, especially now, or more talked about now than ever before.
Yeah.
But the issue with that is I can't go on TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube without seeing some sort of influencer talking about gut health.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what I can trust and what I can't trust.
Yeah.
So knowing that you're a registered dietitian, the stuff that you're going to be talking about or the research that you've done, I'm assuming is evidence-based, science-backed, researched, all that kind of stuff.
Big time.
So, I'm going to be asking questions with childlike curiosity.
Okay.
Because I really don't know much about gut
Yeah.
health and I want to know more. So my first question is very broad and general. So
Okay.
feel free to take it wherever you'd like.
Yeah.
And that is just like, what is gut health and why should people care?
Yeah. So to touch on what you kind of just said, gut health, it is starting to feel a little fatty because it's everywhere right now. But gut health is not a fad diet.
Yeah.
Like, this is landmark science that is here to stay. The reason it's just so significant in the media right now is a couple reasons. The research in science has only really been going on for 10 to 15 years. So this is kind of normal times when it would be starting to get disseminated out into the media anyways. So it's pretty new research, but it's really exploded in the last 2 years because we know for a fact that 70% of our immune system is housed in our GI tract. So with COVID, immunity has been all the rage. So gut health has gotten a huge boost through that because we actually know that people who have strong gut health, it doesn't prevent them from getting COVID. It doesn't help with that. But we know that people who have good gut health get much milder COVID.
Yeah.
So I think that has helped. It was already in the media and on the rise. And, we've been talking probiotics and these fermented foods and those types of things have been around for the last couple years. But I think the immunity boost really has pushed it kind of into the limelight the last few years. Plus, now that there has been so much research done, the research coming out now, and that's going to come out in the next few years, it's going to be groundbreaking for the way we look at diet. So it is not a fad diet. It is the farthest thing from it. There's so many things. So I think your question was actually, what is gut health?
Yeah.
So when I'm talking gut health, I'm talking the health benefits that actually come from our gut bacteria primarily. So in our GI tract, we house trillions of microorganisms. So primarily bacteria, but there are yeasts and fungi and viruses there. So it's this whole ecosystem, and it kind of works in conjunction to support of a lot of our health. So it releases a lot of our vitamins. It helps with hormone regulation, has a big role in metabolism, huge role in immunity, like I touched on. So that's prevention of chronic disease and autoimmune conditions, allergies, things like that. Like, now there's a huge discussion about the gut and the mental health connection, the gut-brain axis. And there's definitely a connection there that exists. And that's going to be a really interesting area of research that's really growing quickly. So our gut does have a role in basically all of our areas of health.
Yeah.
And we know that it's established in the research, and it's new and exciting and more, like I said, to come. So when my definition of gut health and what it's kind of, it's not official, but it's what it's basically talked about within the science community is a healthy gut is a gut microbiome, so primarily our gut bacteria that is diverse and abundant. So basically we have lots and lots of types of bacteria and lots of different types of bacteria and a large number of bacteria. And the reason we want diverse and abundant is because all of our gut bacteria, they have different health benefits. They each do different things, have different roles in the body. So They're in the process of actually mapping the whole microbiome and trying to really pinpoint what bacteria plays what role and has what benefit. But right now we know that if you have lots of different kinds and lots of them, we're going to see the benefits.
Yeah, yeah. I know, well, this is a few years ago as well. There's this one fitness guy, his name is Ben Greenfield.
Yeah,
and
I know Ben.
A very big like biohacker,
Yeah.
right? And years and years ago, he was talking about getting like tests done on your gut microbiome. Is that real life, or is that kind of like a little hippity dippity?
So it's interesting. Right now, it's not real life because the tests that are available, there's no science backing them.
And thank you for picking up on my not real
Yeah.
life thing. That was good.
yeah. No, it's not good research right now, unfortunately. Now, in the next couple of years, that might be a thing. Like I said, they're still in the process of mapping the microbiome. So until that research is complete, getting your microbiome tested is not going to be super beneficial because we just don't know enough yet. And it's expensive. It can be a little invasive. You're usually sending off a poop sample in the mail. And a lot of, naturopaths, nutritionists, I see a lot of them pushing this. I get asked sometimes if I do stool testing or microbiome testing, and as of right now, no research to support it. But, in the next few years, that may change. So that's not saying that it will never. And I think the idea of it is fascinating because you and I are going to have a very different microbiome based on environment, lifestyle, exposures, genetics, all sorts of different factors. So how interesting to actually test and have your microbiome mapped to see where you're weak, see where you're strong, and make changes to your health based on that. Research just isn't quite there.
So how can people find out if they have a good gut microbiome or bad? Or is that even a thing? Like, is there good and is there bad?
Well, most people think of digestive symptoms. So if you're having, a lot of constipation, diarrhea, bloating, abdominal discomfort, gas, like excessive discomfort, any, IBS, Crohn's, colitis, those digestive disorders, of course, those are kind of flags that your gut health maybe isn't where it should be. But it's so much more than that because, like I said, now we know that there's a role in mental health. So, our mental health is supported by our gut health. So not to say that if you struggle with depression, anxiety, that you've got a gut health issue, but you could. Same as with the immunity piece, we know chronic disease and autoimmune disease. So those could be signs that your gut health maybe isn't where it should be, or not even that it shouldn't, but strengthening your gut health could help you manage those other conditions.
So I think this is mainly naturopaths, maybe nutritionists do this as well, but they'll do like an elimination diet. I don't know if it's so much for gut health or other bits, but are things like that effective or not really? Like if you were to eliminate a bunch of foods and then you reintroduce dairy and you're like, oh, this is making me shit my pants.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be good.
Yeah.
Or does that not really have to do with your gut health?
Kind of separate. So elimination diets can be super effective for food allergies and intolerances. If you have really significant gut symptoms and you have tried to pinpoint what they are and you're just getting nowhere, elimination diets can be really effective. They are not what I would recommend for gut health. If you have a fairly strong gut health or, your digestion is pretty good at baseline, but you just want to support your gut health. You want a gut healthy diet. It's all about abundance. It is the farthest thing from restriction. This is what I love about gut health is every diet available is restrictive. And a gut health diet is all about its abundance, about adding things into your diet. The things that are there that are less than ideal aren't generally too impactful. Too much alcohol, too much sugar, too much caffeine, not great, but not necessarily devastating if you have tons of plant-based foods, lots of whole foods. I mean, the one thing our gut bacteria feeds off is fiber. So we need fiber in our diet. So when we talk a lot about, these digestive conditions like IBS, a lot of times fiber can be irritating. So people with digestive issues can't tolerate a lot of fiber because it can make bloating and abdominal pain and constipation, even diarrhea worse if you don't have kind of the foundation to tolerate it.
Yeah.
So that becomes really problematic because you have a gut health issue and you can't eat fiber to feed your gut bacteria and fix it. So that's where things like you may have to do a period of elimination diet or low FODMAP diet. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Fermentable polysaturates, disaturates.
Yeah, exactly. So FODMAPs
Big
are exactly big words, but what they are is there's certain types of carbohydrates, and a common misconception is FODMAPs are actually really, really healthy foods. Like FODMAPs are generally types of fiber, and they're in a ton of healthy foods that actually have a lot of prebiotics in them. So prebiotics are the specific fibers that feed our healthy gut bacteria. So when we're eliminating, the common misconception with a low FODMAP diet is it's super effective at treating IBS, but it's a short-term diet. It should be done under supervision with a dietitian, and it should be no longer than 6 weeks. And then you start reintroducing. Because once you pull all the FODMAPs out, what you do is you do an elimination period. It's a super restrictive pain in the ass diet. You take out a ton of foods, a ton of healthy carbohydrates. So like a lot of your fruit, your veg, all your dairy, all gluten, and a lot of beans and legumes. So it's very limited. It's an awful diet, but it's short term. So most people get huge symptom resolution of their IBS. So then they love it and they never want to go back. Problem is, it's not meant to be a long-term diet. What you do after the elimination phase is a targeted reintroduction phase. So you, every 3 days, you reintroduce a new food. And then if you get symptoms, you can actually say, okay, that food's a bit problematic to me. But what's interesting is over time, as our gut heals, you can actually tolerate those foods more and more. And most FODMAP containing foods, you'll find you have a threshold for.
Yeah.
So, you may finally narrow down 5 foods that actually trigger symptoms. So then you work, if a full avocado gives you awful gas, then you start at a quarter. And if you're doing okay with that, maybe you push it to a half. So most of the time people can actually eat a really liberalized diet. They just have to go through the work of eliminating it, healing their gut, figuring out what's triggering it, and then figuring out in what quantity they can have it. So I think your original question was...
No, this is good. You go wherever you want.
Elimination diet, not great for gut health, but can be really effective for symptom management.
So, I mean, if we're just thinking of ways to promote a healthy gut, I know you touched upon fiber is probably the most important piece, which is interesting because it almost seems counterintuitive, especially, I know you kind of mentioned it, if they have... so if you have diarrhea, that's a sign of probably not the healthiest gut. Yeah. And if you think of introducing more fiber, it's almost like, well, no, that's just going to make it a lot worse, but that's not always the case.
Well, you probably have to heal the issue first and then introduce the fiber. Yeah. The problem is there's different types of fiber, but some of our fibers that are really high in insoluble fiber, that can be quite irritating to the GI tract. So if you have diarrhea, that's going to make it way worse.
What would be an example of the insoluble fibers?
So that would be like a lot of your raw fruits and vegetables, fruits with skin. So things like the skin on an apple, skin on a pear, that kind of like roughage our grandparents used to call it. That's just, we don't break down fiber, and that type of fiber, things that pass whole, so like black beans, corn, that kind of stuff, that's gonna, can be, exactly, see you later. That can be irritating and make symptoms like diarrhea worse, or if you're constipated, although fiber helps with bowel regularity, if you're already constipated, too much fiber with not enough movement and fluid is gonna make constipation worse. And the thing with fiber is you have to go gradually. I think the targets are, and this makes 0 sense to me, but it's like 25 grams a day for women and 38 grams a day for men, which why do they have such different targets? It makes 0 sense. I always say a good target for everyone is probably about 35 grams, but I like to get all my clients to 50. Over time, but you can't do that. I mean, I know that's a lot, but that's the Mediterranean diet that is the most science-backed diet in evidence.
And what would that be?
Mediterranean diet is super high in fatty fish like salmon, really high in olive oil, lots and lots of fruits and veg, not as much meat. Dairy's in there. It's basically a whole foods diet that's got a lot of like beneficial antioxidant, anti-inflammatory ingredients. But the Mediterranean diet is without a doubt the one diet we know that it's effective for everything. It's effective for chronic disease. It's effective for Sorry, I'm getting a lot of, is that a train or something?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was going to say, I meant to say this at the beginning.
I was like, is this just me?
No. You're going to hear water passing through things. You're going to hear trains going by.
Yeah.
It's not distracting at all.
It's not distracting at all. I'm like, Mediterranean diet. What is that? So a lot of times too in the research, if they're kind of testing a gut healthy diet versus a different intervention, they will use the Mediterranean diet because we know the Mediterranean diet is a gut healthy diet because it's got tons of plant foods, it's super high in fiber, and it's really high in these like antioxidant and polyphenol ingredients, which are also supportive to gut health. So the Mediterranean diet, A1.
It's interesting because I know the Mediterranean diet, when you said the things that it includes, I think keto, but I know keto is no bueno.
So Mediterranean diet would have lots of whole grains and beans and legumes as well.
Gotcha,
and I didn't touch on those, so it is not low carb at all.
Perfect.
Keto is actually, here I go on a tangent.
No, love it. Go.
Almost every diet I can tolerate. Like if a client comes to me, they're like, I'm on this diet, I'm gluten-free, and I have no reason to be on it. Yeah. I'm like, okay, if you want to be gluten-free, we can roll with that.
Sure.
We cannot work with keto. Keto it's trash in every way, but it is truly the worst diet for your gut health. Yeah. And it's because it's carb restrictive, and fiber is a type of carbohydrate. So keto diets are notoriously low in fiber, notoriously constipating. That keto flu, like it's the worst diet for your gut health because we are starving our gut bacteria. So short term, we're going to get weight loss. Long term, the implications to our gut bacteria and our gut microbiome, because the problem is now you're damaging your metabolism, you're damaging your risk of chronic disease, you're damaging your overall health and your risk of, like, again, these autoimmune conditions. So you are hoping for some weight loss and sacrificing all other areas of your health. I work in a hospital full time, and we were seeing a lot of cases of things like pancreatitis and gallstones in young people who were on a keto diet because it was literally too much fat for their body to handle. Their organs could not keep up with that volume of fat intake. Yeah. So, I mean, the keto diet has some good evidence for it in epileptic children who are medication resistant. Yeah. There's a little bit of evidence with keto and diabetes. I would probably say that a lot of that has to do more with carb quality versus carb restriction. So we know that, white carbs, high sugar, not great for us, terrible for diabetes. So when they look at the keto diet benefits, is it just the removal of carbs, or is it the fact that most people who are allowed to eat carbs are eating poor quality carbs? Yeah. So really very little evidence to support for any of our chronic health conditions, but certainly the absolute worst thing you can do for your gut health.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about this a little tangenty, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Our big thing with just any sort of diets that we don't love is you're then kind of putting your character and you're associating yourself with that diet. So it's like if you do keto, you join these keto groups, you change your Instagram handle to keto this or
totally
whatever, right? And then there's going to come a time in your life where maybe you can't sustain that lifestyle, and then you're kind of lost. You're like, well, if I'm not keto, what am I, right?
Oh, totally.
I think that's my issue with a lot of diets. It's just like eat clean foods, eat a lot of them.
And this is the thing, a gut health diet, it is not a diet. It doesn't fit in any of these categories. It is not a quick and easy fix. It is literally a whole foods, primarily like a plant-centered diet, not plant-based. I'm not saying go vegan, but we need to eat plants, and we need to eat them from all 6 plant categories, because I kind of touched on this before, but just like we want lots and lots of different types of bacteria are just like you and I. They have taste preferences. Basically, they feed off different types of fibers. So if you eat the same 4 vegetables every single week, which everyone is guilty of, if you're just feeding your bacteria, asparagus, peppers, broccoli, and onions, then you're only feeding those certain types of bacteria and you're neglecting all these other types. So you need to eat foods from all 6 plant-based food categories. So that's whole grains, fruit, veg, beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, and herbs and spices. So you need to hit them all. So by restricting any one of those categories, like even if you go on the lower carb side, you can do a lower moderate carb gut healthy diet,
Yeah.
but you still have to include all the food groups. Like you can't eliminate whole grains, but get some quinoa, bulgur, farro, like mix it up, do some sprouted bread. You can, you have to do those things, or you are neglecting different bacteria and you're not maximizing your gut health.
Is there, I know I've been notorious for this at times as well, where, you have a breakfast and you eat that breakfast every day for 6 months or a year.
3 years.
Or 3 years, right? And same thing with your lunch and same thing with your dinner. So that's not necessarily great for our gut health. We should be cycling our foods.
Yeah, its variety is huge. So one thing that they do know, that this is completely like research evidence-based, is that we need at least 30 different plant foods to really support our gut health to its maximum potential each week. So the problem with that is, if day one you have a great smoothie that's got, mixed berries in it and it's got some spinach and it's got, almond milk and some peanut butter, like, okay, that's 6 different plant foods. But then day 2, day 3, day 4, you have the exact same smoothie. You're still at 6. You are not getting anywhere closer to 30. Same thing if every night for dinner you have asparagus or broccoli. Like, you are not moving that needle towards that 30 the way that you should. And it's little things. It's, if you use black beans every time, get a can of mixed beans. That's how small it has to be. If if you go for red peppers every time, get the variety pack, because believe it or not, yellow, green, red, and orange peppers, they have slightly different fibers in them. They feed slightly different bacteria. So it really is as simple as making little changes, but you have to get the variety. If you always go for romaine, get arugula or kale. Like it's changes like that do move the needle for your gut health.
And it's, I think it's important to make this distinction as well. Vegetables are super important. We're not telling you to go and drink green juice because there is no fiber in those juices.
It's whole foods.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. It is. So smoothie at least is going to retain some of the fiber in it, more of the nutrients. The juicing thing, it's giving you the vitamins, and that's it. Like, eat the whole food. Yeah. It's going to make you so much more full and actually get the benefits.
See, I'm smiling uncontrollably because there's things like, as soon as I meet someone and we start to talk about lemon juice and apple cider vinegar and juicing and like not the greatest experiencing with it, I'm like, these are my people.
I know, because there's too many people. Like, I get asked at least a handful of times every single week about most clients I have ask me, well, I start the morning with a warm water with lemon. Yeah. And I'm like, if you enjoy that, totally fine.
Yeah, if it's going to help you drink more water, great.
It's not negative, but there is zero science to back that. Yes. We know there's no benefit to that.
And sorry, I should really make the distinction. I'm not making fun of these individuals either. It's more of like, we live in this influencer type world where if someone has 900,000 followers, we're going to trust what they say.
100%.
So when they say to go eat the Goalie little apple cider vinegar gummy, we're like, well, this is obviously going to make my gut microbiome sick. Yeah. So I'm going to do that, but that's not always the case.
I know. People try to out-supplement a poor diet all the time.
And you can't. It's like 5% maybe.
Yeah, exactly. A supplement should be additive to your diet to replace maybe something that you're missing. If you're on more than a handful of supplements, there's a problem.
Yeah. So if we're starting from, day one.
Yeah.
Isaac comes in to talk to Kelsey. My gut ain't that great. I'm getting some diarrheas. Where would you sort of start me off? Like, what would be step 1?
So it really depends on symptoms and duration. So if it's an acute issue, there's lots of things that we can do. I can look at your diet. Some people do develop food intolerances pretty quickly. So like dairy is one that, we're all born with a certain amount of lactase enzyme, and that does decrease as we age. So some people, it does seem like all of a sudden they hit this time and they can no longer tolerate dairy, and it can be pretty quick. So that's an easy one. So I'll try that. I'll try a short-term period of like pulling out some of those like cruciferous vegetables, so like garlic, onions, broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, because they can be a little more gas forming, a little more irritating. So if we've kind of ruled out short-term things, there is one specific probiotic, and we can talk about probiotics because I got a lot to say.
And I know you said prebiotic earlier.
Yeah.
What is
the difference? So prebiotics are the food. So it's types of fiber. Prebiotics are always fiber. They're food for specific healthy gut bacteria. Probiotics are the actual live bacteria or yeast culture. So, and then symbiotics, which are coming out more and more, are usually like capsules that contain both a prebiotic and probiotic. I am more of a fan of prebiotics because I always want to feed what we already have. You know, my microbiome is unique to me, so I want to nurture that. So by feeding my gut microbiome my own, it's going to be more impactful than just taking one or two random strains that might not mean anything to me. It could be a strain I already have a ton of. It could be a strain that has nothing to do with the benefit that I'm seeking. So that's where the probiotics can get a little bit of gray. I think there's tons of promise in them. The problem is we're way too general right now. Where probiotics work and where we see it again in the evidence is when you take specific strains at specific doses for specific durations to target specific issues. So for instance, there's a probiotic called Saccharomyces boulardii. It's actually a live yeast, and it is amazing for diarrhea. It's especially proven for things like antibiotic-associated diarrhea, but it's prescriptive, like a medication. You're supposed to take 10 billion CFU twice a day for 14 days during, the course of an antibiotic or during a flare of acute diarrhea. So that targeted intervention, that is a lot of times, if it's kind of an acute thing, that will generally heal people up, alternating their diet a little bit, getting rid of a few trigger foods, maybe trying getting rid of dairy if they think it's maybe an issue, and then trying the probiotic. If it's like a chronic long-term issue, and I can pretty quickly tell that they have IBS, that's when I would talk to them about potentially doing a low FODMAP diet. So that really is the gold standard. We know that low FODMAP diet under dietitian supervision has almost complete symptom resolution for 70% of people. Yeah, like really significant symptom resolution. So for people who have struggled with IBS, because for a lot of people it's years, and it can be, quite detrimental to quality of life. Like if you're afraid to leave your house because you're going to shit your pants, that's not awesome for you. So then I would do something. I always warn people, if you're going to take on low FODMAP, it is something that you have to be all in on. Because
I was just going to say, it can't be like, all right, I'm going to do it 50% of the time, or for my breakfast and my lunch.
And that's exactly it. People are like, oh, I'm doing low FODMAP. And you'll hear them do it for 6 months, but then they'll eat out all the time, and they'll, they dip their toe into it. The problem with that is you need complete elimination to improve your symptoms, like I was saying, and to heal things, to get things calmed down. And then you need to do that really targeted reintroduction, or you'll never know. If you reintroduce multiple foods at once, how can you say what is triggering your symptom, right? It's like when you start taking a supplement and you're like, I'm going to get healthy. I bought 9 different supplements, and then you might feel better, but what are the 9? Are you
get healthy, but you have no idea. You got to keep on taking all of them.
You're taking all 9 for the rest of your life? Yeah. So that would probably be, it really depends. Like everything I do is really individualized. I do not push a low FODMAP unless we're at a point where I know this is like a long-term non-responsive IBS to more minor modifications. Sometimes I'll just get people to do food journals for me, and I can pretty quickly pinpoint like, okay, these are the triggers of your symptoms. But for some people, there is no rhyme or reason, because our digestion too is triggered by stress and so many different lifestyle factors that it can be hard to just look at a diet and know.
So when you mentioned when they do like a food journal, and there's certain things that you'll be able to pick out immediately, what would those things be?
In terms of like symptoms, or like what might be triggering?
Foods. Yeah. Is it like, okay, so Isaac has 4 whey protein shakes a day.
Yeah.
All right. Chances are it's probably
Chances are that's probably not helping. So what I do,
Let's write that.
Yeah. I use a program, and it's a food and symptom journal.
Gotcha.
So I'm always backtracking, because the problem is you can get symptoms immediately following a meal, or you can get them like 12 to 24 hours later. So that's where it can get really tricky. But yeah, I am looking for things like, okay, that lunch had a lot of dairy and then they had some issues. Or they had a great dinner, but it was like chock full of high FODMAP vegetables, and then they really were struggling. So that's probably problematic. And sometimes what I might do is just pull out like one of those FODMAP categories.
Yeah. Okay. So fiber, just going back to fiber now. 35, but you want to get people to 50. That's the big goal.
Yeah, 35 I would say is minimum for everyone.
What is,
if you can tolerate it.
What's the best way to track your fiber?
So I am really kind of anti-tracking if you don't need to. I would rather you track your 30 plant-based food groups. And if you're doing that, you're going to be hitting like 35 for sure minimum. So I always just look at it like, I mean, you could break it down by meal and try and get, 15 at your breakfast and lunch and 20 at your dinner, and that's going to be your 50 grams a day. But I'm more of kind of the intuitive eating mindset. So I'd rather, if you're doing 2 to 3 whole fruits every day and you're doing at least 2 servings of vegetables at lunch and dinner, all your grains should be whole grains, probably 1 at each meal. And then you're getting some nuts and seeds throughout the day. You're clearing 35 easy. It's not something you need to think about. If you are someone who is like, you have no idea where you're at with fiber and you would really like to know, I would say that's something that you could set up like an app for. Like the program I use, I don't like, calorie, carb, other nutrients. The things I like people to see are usually protein and fiber, just so that or that might be what I'm looking at specifically. But yeah, I would say more focus on getting those plant groups in, and then you're going to be hitting those targets.
Okay. So with gut health, sorry, and I know we're going all over the place, but I'm just, once again, childlike curiosity. I just want to know, is there a correlation between gut health and performance with fitness or weight loss or energy or things like that?
For sure. So from a weight loss perspective, we know our gut bacteria have a role in metabolism. So our gut bacteria, they eat fiber, they feed off fiber, and they release something called short chain fatty acids. And there's 3 primary short chain fatty acids. Gonna get real sciencey.
Excited.
Butyrate, acetate, and propionate. And they are responsible for a lot of the health benefits that we see. So some of them have big anti-inflammatory benefits, which can help with weight loss, and others help with metabolism. So we definitely know like a gut healthy. So I actually did my master's thesis project on. I was so tired. I'd already been working as a dietitian. Here I am, like all over the place. I'd been working as a dietitian for probably 6 years when I started my master's, and I don't work in weight loss, but of course it comes up in my role.
Of course.
And I hate working with weight loss because no one gets results.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating. And I was really tired of putting people on like a more restrictive diet that they weren't going to be compliant with, that they weren't going to see results with. So my hypothesis basically was there a way to manipulate our gut microbiome to promote weight loss? So what I wanted to do was, okay, can we eat in a certain way to manipulate our gut?
This is what your thesis was on?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then that will actually, so it was a research project. I didn't actually do the research myself. I just did like a massive literature review. But what it showed was that people who did have a gut healthy diet, like across the board, maintained a lower body weight, even if that was not a goal at all. Way lower rates of obesity. And what was even more interesting to me is that the rare person who had a very healthy gut but was overweight or obese, they were the healthy overweight or obese. There was no chronic disease. There was no diabetes, heart disease. So that to me was just like light bulb moment. It's our health that matters, but by eating to support our gut health, you're not gonna carry extra weight because you're eating so many plant foods. This fiber is the most filling thing on the planet. You're probably not overeating if you're eating all these great foods. And we know that we take a lot less calories from whole foods anyways than we do processed foods. So we really don't need to worry about that. Like if you're eating the right types of foods, you don't have to restrict. Your body will find that good set point on its own. So yes, definitely with metabolism and weight loss. What else did you say?
Performance.
Performance.
Yeah.
Yes and no. So I don't know how much research has been done specifically on like sports performance with gut health. But again, because of its role in overall health, and one thing that we do know is people who exercise regularly have a much better gut health. And people who exercise regularly have much more diversity. So a lot more types of bacteria. So I think it is that two-way relationship. I can't say for sure.
For sure.
But I do think it is beneficial in every area.
It's funny. So the last podcast I did with one of the owners, Will, we were talking about this idea of like a health continuum. And, if we think of it like a speedometer, at 0, there's disease, obesity, things like that. at the very end, it's like you're Olympians, the fittest people on earth, but you don't necessarily want to be there. Those individuals aren't necessarily the healthiest. They may be the fittest, but those two things are very, very different. So I know you're saying stress plays a big role on your gut health. So I wouldn't be surprised if these individuals' gut health isn't all that fantastic because of the stress and all that.
That's totally a thing. I always say with really intense like HIIT style working out, you do want to actually limit that to like 2 to 3 days a week. That should not be your only exercise, and it should not be every day for an hour. It's too much stress on our body. You know, there are other benefits to HIIT style and like that intense style working out, and I love it myself, but it should not be everything, because there are a lot of actually gut health benefits to some of that lower intensity stuff. So more aerobic style exercise, Pilates, that lower intensity is actually better from a stress perspective. You're right.
We're going to be best friends.
Yeah.
Like just hearing you talk, totally. Like, this is so aligned with my values, which is great. That's awesome. It's awesome. So I have a few quick questions. Okay. And I wanted to call this segment Gut Check. Okay. Let's do it. So I know we got to get you out of here soon because you got an appointment next door. But where are we here? Okay, so it's Gut Punch, not Gut Check.
Gut Punch. Okay. Gut Punch. I like that.
So when I Google gut health and gut microbiome, there's a few things that pop up that I'm sure maybe some you agree with, some you don't agree with. Taking shots of apple cider vinegar in the morning for gut health. Yeah.
Now, I think the thought was that raw apple cider vinegar could actually contain some probiotics, scant amounts, maybe. It's not having any sort of impact. It's nasty. Yeah. And it's just not, it's not going to provide you what you're looking for. I think people think I can eat a crap diet and take a shot of apple cider vinegar. There's no science to support it.
Okay. Lemon water.
Yeah, we touched on that. Again, I think the thought is that it kickstarts digestion, contains some digestive enzymes. No, if you like the taste of it, gets you more water, sure. There's no science.
Is there a correlation between water and gut health, though? Like in terms of drinking more water?
Good point. I don't actually know specifically. Okay. I would say that fluid is necessary for a high fiber diet, right? Because the thing with fiber, like I said, is it will help move things along, but it also helps bulk things. So if you are a dehydrated person eating a ton of fiber, you're going to be constipated, which is counterintuitive to a lot of what people, so they're hand in hand. You need high fiber, high fluid. So I would say that a gut healthy diet would by nature be high fluid because you need it to support the high fiber intake.
That's what's always so interesting about the lemon water idea is if someone went from never drinking water and then all of a sudden they're having a glass of lemon water in the morning, that might be enough to kickstart certain things 100%. That an empty glass of water would have just done.
It's very similar to a coffee. It's hot, it's stimulating,
kombucha.
I love kombucha because I'm tired of drinking water all the time. Honestly, frankly, it's tasty. It's pretty low sugar. It does have some live bacteria in it. Can I say that live bacteria is making a huge impact on my gut health? No, absolutely not. The problem is with food studies, there's very little research done on it because they're really expensive to run and you can't control diet. So you could give, your entire control group a kombucha a day, but you have no idea what they're eating the rest of the day. Yeah. So then at the end of the study, if they've got some benefit, if there was no benefit, did they have a crap diet? So it's really hard to test. So I would say yes, thumbs up, but it's expensive. Yeah. If you don't like it or you don't want to spend $5, like it is not something you need to have every day and it's not making or breaking your gut health.
I was going to say, it's not going to take you from crap gut health to good gut health.
100%, not at all. But I like fermented foods in addition to my like whole foods, plant-centered diet because I think we're getting potential benefits of some extra live bacteria. Can't hurt, but not a necessity.
Is there such thing as too many fermented foods?
Not really.
Just like anything, balance.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It depends. Like if you're eating exclusively, fermented foods in terms of like you're drinking a liter of kefir a day, that's maybe too much dairy, too many calories from that. So I think, within those constraints, there can be, but in general, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So diet pops, or I guess we can talk about
Artificial sweeteners.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you,
problem.
You knew where I was going.
Yes, not great for gut health.
Okay.
Yeah, studies done show that people who have a lot of artificial sweeteners have a much less diverse gut microbiome.
Okay, that's good. Ibuprofen and acetaminophen?
Yeah.
So just Tylenol and Advil.
Tylenol and Advil, yeah.
I wanted to seem smart.
Yeah, you went for it. I appreciated it. Excessive use, not great for our gut health. Yeah. So, I mean, again, in moderation, I think the problem is, I mean, I have friends who take Advil most days of their life.
Yeah.
My back is out right now. That's why I'm going to see a chiropractor, and I've taken Advil 6 days in a row. And I was like, this morning, I was like, I need it, but I don't want to take it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think, moderate use is fine, but too much is not good. And it's not good for the lining of our gut either.
Yeah.
So I think increased risk of things like leaky gut.
Yeah. What is leaky gut?
Yeah.
I had that as a question on here because I hear it often. I'm like,
yeah.
What does that mean?
So leaky gut it's finally being recognized in the science as a legitimate condition. So basically our gut wall lining is like this, like junctions. They're really, really tight. So they can open and release toxins and negative things into the bloodstream, but then they should seal right back up. The problem is when you have really bad diet and a lot of inflammation chronically, those junctions loosen and good things start slipping through and bad things start coming in. So that's the whole concept behind leaky gut. Actually, one of those short chain fatty acids that I was talking about, so that's the byproduct of digesting fiber by our gut bacteria. It's known specifically to feed the colonocytes, which are the cells that make up our gut wall lining. So we know by eating a high fiber diet, we release these short chain fatty acids that actually strengthen our gut wall lining. So, I mean, you hear all sorts of things like bone broth is so good for leaky gut.
Yeah.
No, a high fiber diet is so good for our gut because we need that whole chain of events to strengthen our gut wall lining. So that is basically what leaky gut is.
Okay.
There is kind of some medical professionals don't believe in it, but I think there's more and more evidence to support that it does exist. And I would say it's primarily due to chronic inflammation from lifestyle factors.
Okay. Keto, we already talked about.
Yeah.
We don't need to go back there.
Don't need to touch on that. Yeah. The worst thing for your gut health. Sorry, I had to.
We're just going to title this whole podcast.
Yeah.
Keto sucks. And then the last one, this is probably a bigger topic, so don't feel like you need to go too much in depth with it, but fasting.
Yeah. So fasting I used to be an intermittent faster. I've done so much research on it. I use it in my practice a decent amount. It really depends on the person and the reason for it. So here's the thing with intermittent fasting, it's great for men. It sucks for women a lot of times. Women, because of hormonal reasons, are really sensitive to hormonal fluctuations and stress. And fasting longer than 12 hours a day can be a major stress on your system. And it can be really bad for women's hormones and throw off a whole bunch of things. So it can actually be negative. So if you're looking, a lot of people fast for weight loss primarily. So for men, the research is great, like 16-8 fasting, even some OMAD. For weight loss, it's pretty good. It's also good for, brain fog. From a gut health perspective, here's what I say of it. I think everyone should be fasting 12 hours overnight. There is validity in getting a bit of a reset and shutting down your digestive system, letting things clear out. I think that's beneficial. There's something called our migrating motor complex, which is basically, it's like the wave-like motion of our digestive tract. We want to push everything through. That only happens when you're in a fasted state, I think longer than 6 hours. So if you're eating all day long, you're not getting any of that like clearing. So then that's really important. You need that longer fast overnight. I think it's maybe 6 to 8 hours. So I do think there's validity in at least 12 hours a day. With my male weight loss clients, I will sometimes push them to a 16-8 fast if they like it and if it fits with them. Women, I'm hesitant to do it. I actually can do a 16-18 fast and be fine. I don't fast anymore because I've been pregnant and breastfeeding for years. But it was fine with me. People always ask me, well, how do I know if I'm not tolerating it? Well, if you are starving, if you're cranky, if you're low blood sugar, if you're weak, you're dizzy, you're shaky, you're not tolerating it. So it's kind of easy if you listen to your body to tell. But yeah, in general, I would say fasting within reason, good for gut health, because there's some benefits to slowing down that digestion. But I don't like OMAD fasting. I think it's way too long. And I think that, we need actual adequate nutrition, and it's really hard to get enough nutrition to support everything that you need. Like, how are you getting 50 grams of fiber in one meal? Probably not happening.
No.
And even if you're eating in an 8-hour period, you're probably eating every 2 hours. Because it's not about limiting calories and nutrition. It's about the fasting period.
Yeah. And I don't really know much about that, but I'm assuming if you were to have just one big meal, that's probably not going to be fantastic for your gut either.
It's really bad that way. Yeah, exactly. There's just too much strain on your GI tract.
That makes sense. Okay. It has been almost 45 minutes.
Okay.
And I need to let you go to your chiro appointment.
Sure.
But I know, weather isn't great out there. Roads aren't fantastic. You have a young kid at home.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with us. Before I let you go, I know you have your own practice.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? What types of things or clients are you looking for? And I'll link all of your socials and stuff in the show notes as well.
Okay, perfect. So I'm Gut Healthy Dietitian. So guthealthydietitian.com, Instagram, Gut Healthy Dietitian. Not very active on Facebook. Clients, I love to work with gut health. So any sort of digestive condition, hormonal condition. So I do a lot of PCOS. Things like that, and sports nutrition. I'm an athlete. I've always been in the field. So those would be like my ideal clients. Yeah. I will see most things. My role is in the hospital. I work primarily in ICU and stroke, but I also work on general medicine. So I've got and I cover surgery. So I've got a pretty extensive knowledge of most health conditions. So I can see pretty much everything. My least favorite clients, unfortunately, are women who want to lose weight.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard.
It is very difficult.
I internalize their failure.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. There's so many barriers to weight loss, especially in women, but between hormones and genetics, it's kind of an uphill battle. I'd so much rather work with someone who it was health first, and then weight loss will come.
Yeah.
Like in almost everyone I work with, they get weight loss secondary.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. One of our big things is forming habits, like healthy habits around fitness. That, like James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, talks a lot about, do some sort of physical activity 7 days a week and just focus on that. And then you start to become the person who doesn't miss a workout.
100%.
And then that is associated with so many other things and blah, 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 blah. So weight loss is fun times.
Yeah, gym owner. I mean, you feel that. But honestly, if you were doing the healthy habits and that's your goal, because you feel like I have had clients say to me, oh my gosh, I feel worlds better. Like I hop out of bed.
Yes.
I'm so
focus on that feeling.
And they're like, but I'm disappointed I'm not losing weight. And it's like, your life has changed.
Absolutely.
Like focus in on that.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. We'll break through to those individuals one day.
Yeah.
Anyways, Kelsey, once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Cool.